I grew up in this tiny town where the biggest landmark was Paradise Fields Cemetery. The name made it sound peaceful, but there was nothing peaceful about what happened to me there when I was 14. Back then, I was desperate to fit in. You know how it is in small towns? Everyone knows everyone, and I was just a hardware store owner's kid who spent too much time reading comic books. There were these 3 guys at school who called themselves the Wolves: Marcus, Danny, and Kyle. They'd skip class to buy cigarettes from the gas station, and they had this swagger that made every other kid want to be them. Marcus was the leader. His dad worked construction, and Marcus had these calloused hands and this way of looking at you like he could see right through your lies. Danny was the funny one, always cracking jokes, usually mean ones. Kyle just followed along, but he had this cruel streak that came out when he thought no one was watching. I'd tried everything to get their attention. I'd started wearing my dad's old work boots to school, even though they were 2 sizes too big. I'd practiced spitting the way they did, that casual arc that landed perfectly on the gravel. Nothing worked. They looked right through me. Then one Friday after lunch, I was hiding behind the gymnasium drinking a warm Coke I'd bought from the vending machine. The carbonation had gone flat and it tasted like sugar water mixed with pennies. That's when Danny spotted me. "Well, well," he said, that grin spreading across his face. "If it isn't the bookworm." Marcus and Kyle flanked him, forming a little semicircle. My face burned hot enough that I could feel sweat beading on my forehead. "You ever been to Paradise Fields after dark?" Marcus asked. I shook my head. My mom had always warned me about the cemetery. She said the spirits don't rest easy when people disrespect the dead. But I wasn't about to tell them that. "Tomorrow night, midnight," Marcus continued. "If you want to run with us, you gotta prove you're not some scared little kid." The way he said it made my stomach drop, like when you're on a roller coaster and gravity disappears for a second. But I nodded anyway. "Don't chicken out," Danny added with a laugh. "We'll know." Saturday dragged by like a funeral march. I helped Dad organize screws and washers at the store, my hands shaking every time I thought about what I'd agreed to. Mom worked a double shift at the diner, so she left dinner money on the counter with a note: "Heat up the leftover meatloaf. Love you." The $20 bill crinkled in my pocket as I walked through town toward the cemetery. Paradise Fields sat on the edge of town, surrounded by a chain-link fence that rattled in the wind. The streetlight nearest the entrance had burned out weeks ago. Everything beyond the gate was swimming in shadows. I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. The green glow from the numbers hurt my eyes. I figured they'd stood me up. Wouldn't be the first time someone played a joke on me. But then I heard Marcus whistle from behind the biggest mausoleum, this stone building that looked like a miniature house for dead people. "Didn't think you'd show," Kyle said as the 3 of them came out of the shadows. "I said I would," I replied, hoping my voice sounded steadier than I felt. Marcus pulled the crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket. 3 tests, he announced. "Pass all 3, and you're one of us. Fail any of them, and you walk home alone." The first test was simple enough. Hop from headstone to headstone across a section of graves without touching the ground. "The dirt's lava," Danny explained, like we were still kids playing on the playground. My sneakers squeaked against the wet marble as I jumped from stone to stone. Some of them were so old the names had worn away. They were just smooth surfaces that reflected the distant streetlights. I made it across in under 3 minutes, even managed a little backflip when I reached the other side. The second test meant finding 3 bottle caps Danny had scattered among the graves while I was blindfolded with Kyle's bandana. It smelled like cigarettes and unwashed hair. With my eyes covered, I had to crawl around on my hands and knees, feeling through wet grass and fallen leaves. My fingers found the first cap near a grave marked "Beloved Father, 1923-1981. The second was hidden behind a plastic flower arrangement that crackled when I touched it. The third took forever. I finally located it, wedged under a concrete border, the metal edges sharp against my palm. Marcus seemed annoyed that I'd succeeded. His jaw muscles worked like he was chewing something tough. "Last test," he said, leading us to a section of the cemetery I'd never seen before. There, in the middle of a cleared area, was an open grave. The dirt pile beside it looked fresh, black soil that stuck to my shoes. Inside the rectangular hole sat a wooden coffin, its lid closed. "Some old guy's funeral is Monday," Marcus explained, "but tonight you're gonna test it out for him." The coffin was simple pine, the kind my dad said they use for people without much money. The brass handles gleamed in the moonlight, and there was this smell rising from the hole. Not death, exactly, but something earthy and cold that made my nose itch. "6 minutes, Danny said, holding up his watch. "We'll bury you just enough to make it real. If you can handle it, you're in." My mouth went dry. I'd seen enough movies to know this was insane, but the way they looked at me, like this was the most normal thing in the world, made me doubt myself. Maybe this was just what you had to do. Maybe this was how friendship worked. I climbed down into the grave. The walls were perfectly straight, cut clean through clay and rock. At the bottom, I had to bend my knees to fit into the coffin. The wood felt smooth under my palms, and the inside smelled like sawdust and varnish. "Just breathe normal," Marcus called down. "We'll dig you out in 6 minutes." The lid closed with a soft thud. Right away, everything went black. Not just dark, black like the inside of your eyelids when you press your fingers against them. I heard the scrape of shovels above me, then the hollow sound of dirt hitting wood. At first, it wasn't so bad. The coffin was bigger than I'd expected, and air seemed to be getting in somehow. I counted my heartbeats, trying to keep track of time. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. But after what felt like 10 minutes, the air started to feel thick, like breathing through a wet blanket. My chest worked harder to pull in each breath, and the wood above my face seemed to press closer. I tried to push up against the lid, but it wouldn't budge. The weight of the dirt held it down tight. "Hey," I called out. "Guys, time's up." Nothing. Just the muffled sound of wind through grass. "Marcus! Danny!" Still nothing. That's when I understood. They weren't coming back. This wasn't a test, it was something else entirely. Something that would end with my parents finding an empty bed in the morning and the police asking questions nobody could answer. I pushed against the lid until my arms ached. I tried to kick, but there wasn't room to get any leverage. The air grew thinner and my lungs burned with each breath. Spots of light danced behind my closed eyelids, and I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears like a drum. Just when the darkness started to feel permanent, I heard digging above me, fast, desperate scratching sounds. The lid shifted, and suddenly cool air rushed into the coffin like water into dry ground. My mom's face appeared above me. Dirt streaked across her cheeks, her hair wild from running. She grabbed my arms and hauled me up out of the grave, both of us crying and gasping. "Where are they?" she demanded, looking around the empty cemetery. "Where are those boys?" But we both knew the answer. They were long gone, probably back home in their beds, pretending they'd never set foot in Paradise Fields. Mom never asked how she knew to look for me there, and I never told her about my sister calling her from her friend's house, worried because I hadn't come home. Some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. The three boys denied everything, of course. When I confronted them Monday morning, Marcus just laughed and said, "I must have had a bad dream." But I saw something in their eyes that hadn't been there before, a kind of satisfied darkness, like they'd gotten exactly what they wanted. I still live in this town, 30 years later. I drive past Paradise Fields every day on my way to work. Sometimes I see kids hanging around the fence, daring each other to go inside after dark. When I do, I roll down my window and tell them the same thing my mom told me: the dead don't rest easy when you don't show respect. But that's not the part that keeps me awake at night. What haunts me is simpler than that. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that coffin, feeling the weight of the dirt above me. And sometimes, just sometimes, I wonder if those boys dug me up at all, or if I'm still down there, dreaming this whole life I think I'm living. The scratch marks on the inside of my bedroom door suggest I'm not the only one who wonders.